r/entitled parents my BIL exposed my pregnancy secret, so I called police. #r/entitled parents my BIL exposed my pregnancy secret, so I called police. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, when I saw it. The post. Tagged with my name, my face, and a photo of an ultrasound that I recognized instantly because I'd taken it from my OB's office, not to keep, but to show my husband in private. My hand started shaking so badly that I had to set the mug down before I dropped it. ***, so excited to announce that my sister-in-law is finally knocked up, ***, the caption read, followed by a string of emojis and a paragraph that made my stomach drop through the floor. After she refused to help me out financially, turns out she can afford to start a family. Guess she's not as broke as she claimed. Welcome to motherhood. Face with tears of joy, baby bottle baby. The post had been up for 17 minutes. It already had 43 comments and 68 shares. I called my husband immediately. Did you see it? I asked, my voice coming out strangled. What? See what? Mark sounded confused, but I could hear the background noise of his office. Typical Tuesday afternoon. Facebook. Your brother. He posted. I couldn't even finish the sentence without my throat closing up. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm going to kill him. I'm literally going to kill Mark. Just come home. He was there in 22 minutes. I had spent those 22 minutes in a state of controlled panic, my hand pressed protectively against my still flat stomach. The pregnancy was only 10 weeks along, 10 fragile weeks after 3 years of heartbreak. 3 years of negative tests, of blood work appointments, of my body betraying me over and over again. 3 years of silence because I'd learned the hard way that loss is easier to bear in private. This pregnancy was supposed to be different. This one was supposed to be mine, just mine and Mark's, until I was ready to tell the world. Until I'd made it past the first trimester. Until I felt safe enough to believe it would last. And now the entire extended family knew. The entire Facebook community knew. Everyone I'd been deliberately avoiding because I couldn't handle the constant questions and scrutiny knew. Where is he? Mark demanded, slamming the front door. I don't know. Does it matter? It matters because I need to know if I should punch him in a public location or a private one, Mark said, already pulling out his phone to call his brother. His face was redder than I'd ever seen it, the vein in his temple pulsing with barely contained rage. Mark is not an angry person by nature. But this was different. How did he even know? Mark was pacing now, still holding the phone to his ear. His voicemail went to Mark's brother Trevor's message, and I watched my husband's jaw clench as he left a tersely professional message asking, demanding, really, that Trevor call him back immediately. I didn't answer his question right away because I was already connecting the dots. Sunday family dinner. 3 days ago. I'd gone to the bathroom around halfway through, and when I came back, my purse, which I'd left on the kitchen counter, had been moved. I remembered noticing it but not thinking much of it. My mother-in-law was always moving things around, tidying up, playing with our belongings without asking. But it wasn't my mother-in-law who needed money last week. It was Trevor. He'd come by the house asking if Mark and I could help him out. A small loan, he'd called it. $5,000. He had a business opportunity that was time-sensitive. He needed our help, our support, our family commitment to his dreams. I'd said no. Mark had said no. We'd explained, politely, in the way you do with family, that we had our own financial goals and couldn't help him right now. He'd left angry. Not explosively angry, but the kind of angry that simmers underneath a thin smile. The kind of angry that makes you feel uncomfortable for days afterward. My medical documents, I said quietly, and Mark stopped pacing. What? He went through my purse. That's how he knows. He saw my pregnancy test, or maybe the ultrasound image I took a photo of. He snooped through my medical information because I wouldn't give him money. Mark's expression went through a series of emotions I couldn't quite track. Anger, yes, but also something darker. Something that looked like he was considering something he'd never considered before. That's illegal, he said flatly. I know. He can't just, that's your private medical information. I know, I repeated. Did he ask permission to post that? Of course not. Mark sat down heavily on the couch and pulled me toward him. I let myself sink into his lap, my hand still on my stomach, as if I could protect our baby from the fact that our privacy had been shattered into a million pieces. What do you want to do? Mark asked, his voice quiet now. The anger was still there, but it was being channeled into something else. Something focused. I thought about it. About the 3 years of trying. About the 2 miscarriages that nobody knew about. About how carefully I'd guarded this pregnancy, how desperately I'd wanted to protect it in the early weeks when so much could still go wrong. I thought about Trevor's entitled smirk, his assumption that he could demand money from us and then punish us when we said no. I thought about my medical information being used as a weapon. I want him to face consequences, I heard myself say. Real consequences. Not just family drama. Not just Mark being angry with him. I want actual consequences. Mark nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Okay. We'll call the police. We'll report this. We'll figure it out. And that's exactly what we did. #chum2. The police non-emergency line put me on hold for 8 minutes. 8 minutes of elevator music while my heart hammered against my ribs and Mark sat beside me, his hand never leaving the small of my back. Thank you for holding. What is your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was professional, bored even. It's not exactly an emergency, I started, then immediately felt stupid. I mean, it's not urgent in the moment, but it's urgent to me. Someone violated my medical privacy and posted my private health information on social media without my consent. There was a pause. Do you feel you're in immediate danger? No. No, I'm safe. It's just, my brother-in-law went through my personal belongings, found my medical documents, and posted about my pregnancy on Facebook to punish me for not lending him money. I could hear the dispatcher typing. Has he made any threats towards you? Not explicitly. But he. Can you hold for a moment while I transfer you to the appropriate department? More hold music. More waiting. Mark squeezed my hand. When the officer came on the line, Detective Sarah Chen, she said her name was, she sounded like she actually cared. She asked me to start from the beginning, and I did. I told her about Trevor's visit, about the money request, about my purse being moved. I told her about the post, about the ultrasound photo, about how he'd framed it all as public family news while really it was a punishment. I'm going to be honest with you, Detective Chen said after I finished. This falls into a gray area legally. Yes, accessing someone's private documents without permission could constitute invasion of privacy or even theft if he physically took something. But the posting of the information is trickier. Did he take the ultrasound image, or did he just see it and remember it? I took a photo of the ultrasound on my phone, I explained. I don't know how unless he went through my phone too. Do you have evidence that he accessed your phone or your purse? Not directly. But no one else knew. The only people at my house that day were Mark, me, and Trevor. Does anyone else have access to your home? A housekeeper, a maintenance person? No, it's just us. Detective Chen was quiet for a moment. Here's what I can do. I can file a report, and we can send your brother-in-law a cease and desist regarding the social media post. But as far as prosecution goes, we'd need to prove intent and actual unauthorized access. Do you have a medical provider who can confirm whether someone other than you accessed your patient records? My stomach sank. I don't think he accessed the official records. I think he just saw my personal photos or the physical test when I brought it home. That makes it harder to prosecute as a HIPAA violation, unfortunately. HIPAA protects your information when it's in the hands of healthcare providers, not necessarily when it's in your personal possession. I felt Mark tense beside me. But, Detective Chen continued, the social media posting might fall under harassment or intentional infliction of emotional distress, depending on the context and his intent. I'd like to take a formal statement from you, and I need to get a statement from your brother-in-law as well. I'll reach out to him. I gave her all the information she needed. My address, Trevor's number, the Facebook post URL. She told me someone would be in touch within 48 hours, and to preserve all evidence, screenshots, the post itself, any communications with Trevor. After I hung up, Mark pulled up Facebook on his laptop. The post was still there, but I noticed something that made my blood run cold. He's pinned it, Mark said quietly. What? He pinned it to the top of his profile. This isn't just a post, he's making it featured content. The comments had grown to over 200. Some were congratulatory. Some were people asking me directly why I hadn't told them. Some were Trevor's friends commenting things like your family is wild, man, and LMAO, at least someone's breeding. I felt sick. My phone started buzzing. Text messages. My mother called twice. An email from my cousin asking if it was true. By evening, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My email had exploded with questions, congratulations, and a few messages that were clearly from people who thought they deserved to know I was pregnant and were upset I hadn't told them personally. Turn it off, Mark said. Just turn your phone off. People need to. No one needs anything right now except for you to rest and not stress yourself out. This is not good for the pregnancy. He was right. I knew he was right. But the guilt was creeping in anyway, the feeling that I should be responding, explaining, managing everyone's feelings about my medical information. By Wednesday, the situation had somehow gotten worse. Mark's mother had called, screaming, actually screaming, about how could I not tell the family, how could I keep such a joyful secret, didn't I trust them, was there something wrong with the pregnancy, was I depressed, why didn't I want their support? I didn't want Trevor's support, I'd finally said, my voice sharp in a way it rarely was. I wanted privacy. I wanted safety. I wanted to protect my pregnancy until I was ready. That's no excuse for how you've treated your family, she'd said coldly. Mark's father called to be the voice of reason, suggesting that maybe Trevor had just been excited and didn't mean any harm. That family drama was never helpful. That I should let it go and focus on being grateful for my pregnancy instead of dwelling on negativity. By Thursday, I got a call from Mark's workplace. His boss wanted to discuss the family situation, which apparently Trevor had mentioned during a casual conversation at a networking event. Trevor had framed it as concern for Mark, wondering if everything was okay at home, mentioning that I was being cold and distant toward the family. He's turning this around, Mark said that night, his voice hollow. He's making himself the victim. And he was right. The more I paid attention, the more I realized that Trevor's narrative was spreading. I was the ungrateful sister-in-law who wouldn't help a struggling family member. I was the cold, distant one who didn't want to share her joy. I was the problem. The only person not feeding into that narrative was Detective Chen, who called on Friday to tell me that yes, they'd interviewed Trevor, and yes, he'd admitted to accessing my purse and seeing my medical documents, but he claimed he was just concerned and wanted to celebrate good news with the family. What does that mean? I asked. Is he being charged? That depends on a few factors, she said carefully. We're exploring whether this constitutes harassment or intentional infliction of emotional distress. But I'll be honest, his attorney is already involved, and he's claiming you're overreacting to what was a family matter. I sat in silence for a long moment. I was 30 days into my pregnancy. I was supposed to be glowing, excited, bonding with my baby. Instead, I felt hunted. Violated. Alone, despite Mark being firmly by my side. And I had no idea that things were about to get even worse. #Chunk 3. The miscarriage started on a Tuesday morning. I woke up with cramping that felt different from anything I'd experienced before, sharper, more insistent, like my body was betraying me in the worst possible way. There was spotting. Not a lot, but enough to send me into a panic that made my hands shake so badly I could barely dial my OB's office. Come in right away, the nurse said, and those 4 words contained every fear I'd ever had about this pregnancy. Mark drove me while I sat in the passenger seat with a pillow pressed against my stomach, as if I could physically hold everything together through sheer force of will. The waiting room was full of pregnant women in various stages of their journeys, some early, some glowing with that 3rd trimester confidence. I couldn't look at them. I felt like a failure sitting among them, like my body was publicly announcing that I wasn't good enough to carry a baby. The ultrasound confirmed what I already knew. The yolk sac was smaller than it should have been. The heartbeat, the beautiful heartbeat I'd seen just 2 weeks ago, was gone. I'm so sorry, Dr. Patterson said, and I could see the genuine sadness in her eyes. She'd been my doctor through 3 previous losses. She knew what this meant to me. We can do a DNC procedure, or you can wait and let nature take its course. Either way, I want to see you back here in 2 weeks. I nodded numbly. Mark's hand found mine. We didn't say anything on the drive home because there was nothing to say. I'd been pregnant for exactly 31 days. By evening, the physical pain had intensified. I took the medication Dr. Patterson prescribed and climbed into bed, feeling hollowed out in a way that went beyond the physical. This was the part no one talked about, the specific ache of losing something that was supposed to be mine, that I'd already started dreaming about, even if I'd been keeping those dreams secret. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark's mother. How are you feeling? We're all so excited about the baby. I didn't respond. How could I? She didn't even know about the miscarriage yet, and the thought of telling her, of having to explain, to endure her sympathy, to have this loss become another family spectacle, made me want to throw my phone across the room. But Mark was already texting his family. He had to. They needed to know why we wouldn't be at Sunday dinner. Why I wouldn't be there for the family gathering that had been planned weeks ago. The responses came quickly. Sympathy from his parents. A surprisingly kind message from his sister. And then, an hour later, a text from an unknown number that made my blood go cold. Hey, heard about what happened. Really sorry, man. Maybe this is a sign you guys should focus on other things. Let me know if you need anything. It was from Trevor. How does he know? I asked Mark, my voice barely above a whisper. How does he already know? Mark's jaw clenched. My mom probably told him. Of course she did. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Of course she did, because God forbid we have any privacy in this family. God forbid we have one moment that's just ours. This isn't her fault, Mark said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Isn't it? I sat up in bed, ignoring the pain it caused. She's known Trevor his whole life. She knows what he's like. And she still told him. She still fed him information about my body, about my medical situation, because apparently that's just what families do. Mark didn't have an answer for that. By Thursday, the physical miscarriage was complete. By Saturday, Detective Chin called. I wanted to update you on the case, she said, her professional tone making it clear this wasn't going to be good news. We've had a development. Your brother-in-law's attorney has filed a countercomplaint. My stomach dropped. What? He's claiming that your actions, specifically filing a police report against him and discussing the case with family members, constitute harassment and defamation. He's arguing that you're deliberately damaging his reputation by making accusations that he violated your privacy when, in his view, he was simply excited about family news. That's insane, I whispered. He went through my purse. He admitted that. He admits to seeing documents in your purse during a family gathering. He's claiming he didn't realize they were private medical documents, and that once he saw the information, he thought it was appropriate to share family news with family members on social media. His attorney is arguing that this is a civil matter at best, not a criminal one, and that any harassment or defamation claims against him are more valid than yours against him. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So what does that mean? It means, Detective Chin said carefully, that this is becoming more complicated. His attorney is well known for aggressive defense tactics. They're going to argue that you're a vindictive sister-in-law trying to destroy his reputation over a relatively minor invasion of privacy that many families might overlook. I'm miscarried, I said. The words came out flat, emotionless, because I couldn't afford to feel anything right now. I'm miscarried because of the stress he caused. There was a pause. I'm genuinely sorry to hear that. But from a legal standpoint, that's going to be very difficult to prove. Miscarriages can happen for many reasons, and a defense attorney will argue that other factors were involved. After we hung up, I told Mark about the countercomplaint. He went very still. He's playing victim, he said finally. He violated your privacy, and now he's claiming you're the one harassing him. The detective thinks this might not be prosecutable anymore. She thinks his attorney might actually have grounds to push back. Then we get our own attorney, Mark said, his voice hard in a way I'd never heard before. If he wants to play this game, we play it better. But here's the thing about fighting back against someone like Trevor. It costs money we didn't have saved, it takes emotional energy we didn't have to spare, and it gives him exactly what he wanted, attention, drama, and proof that he'd gotten under my skin. By Monday, the first of the legal bills started arriving. By Tuesday, I received a carefully worded cease and desist letter from Trevor's attorney, demanding that I stop making false accusations and spreading defamatory statements about him. The letter specifically mentioned my conversation with Mark's mother, which apparently had gotten back to Trevor. The letter was copied to Mark's workplace. I was learning, very quickly, that sometimes calling for help doesn't save you. Sometimes it just escalates everything into something bigger, messier, and far more dangerous than you ever imagined. #Chunk4. The cease and desist letter sat on our kitchen table like a physical threat. I couldn't stop staring at it, even though I'd already read it 7 times. The letterhead was from some prestigious firm downtown, the kind that probably charged $500 an hour just to exist in their waiting room. Trevor had lawyered up fast. Too fast. Which meant either he was genuinely terrified of the consequences, or he had something to prove. Mark was on the phone with an employment lawyer he'd found through a referral. I could hear the stress in his voice even from the other room. No, I understand, he was saying. But they can't just copy legal correspondence to his workplace without cause. That seems like intimidation. I couldn't hear the response, but whatever it was made Mark's shoulders tense even more. After he hung up, he came into the kitchen and sat down heavily. We need our own lawyer. A real one. Not just a consultation line. How much is that going to cost? I already knew the answer. We had savings, but not that much savings. We'd been saving for a nursery. For maternity leave. For all the things you save for when you're expecting a baby. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. But his voice had that false cheerfulness people use when they're lying, even if it's just a small lie. I picked up my phone and opened my email. 43 new messages since this morning. Most of them were from family. Mark's mother, sweetheart, I'm so sorry Trevor did this. I had no idea he would react this way. Can we please all just sit down and talk about this? His sister, OMG, this is insane. Do you want me to say something to him? I'm so angry right now. His father, let's not involve the authorities in family business. These things have a way of working themselves out. His uncle, heard there's some drama going on. Just wanted to check in and make sure everything's okay on your end. Trevor seems upset about something. And then, buried in the middle of all those messages, was one from an unknown address, stoptheharassment247@gmail.com. The subject line read, think about what you're doing. I clicked on it, even though I knew I shouldn't. Asterisk, you're destroying a man's life over a pregnancy announcement. A pregnancy you lost anyway. He made a mistake, and you're trying to ruin him for it. His friends are dropping him. His boss is asking questions. His girlfriend left him because of your lies. Is this really what you want? Think about the karma coming back to you. You'll regret this asterisk. Mark, I called out, my voice steady even though I didn't feel steady. Look at this. He read it 3 times. I watched his face go through several emotions, shock, anger, worry, and finally something that looked like resignation. That's not a threat, I said, and I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince him or myself. Legally, that's not a threat, right? It's intimidation. Which is still illegal. He picked up his phone. I'm forwarding this to Detective Chen. Do you think it matters? She basically said this case is too complicated now. Mark didn't answer, which was answer enough. That evening, I made the mistake of scrolling through Facebook. I shouldn't have, but I did. Trevor's cousin, who I'd never particularly liked but had always been civil to, had posted a lengthy message about the false accusations being leveled against Trevor and how some people will do anything for attention, even make up crimes. The post had 73 comments, most of them variations on the same theme, poor Trevor, victim of a vindictive family member, witch hunt, etc. But buried in the comments was something worse. A link to an article from a business news site, dated that morning, local real estate developer faces privacy accusations from family member. It wasn't named explicitly, but anyone who read between the lines would know exactly who it was. Someone had tipped off the press. The article was balanced enough, it presented Trevor's defense alongside my allegations, but the headline was what mattered. The headline was what people would remember. I called Detective Chen myself this time, not waiting for Mark to do it. This is escalating, I told her. Someone leaked this to the press. Someone is spreading information about the case. Ms. Harrison, I need to be honest with you, Detective Chen interrupted. The DA's office is looking at dropping the case. Trevor's attorney has made several compelling arguments about the civil versus criminal nature of the incident, and with a counter-complaint and now these allegations of harassment on your part, they're concerned about the strength of the prosecution. So he wins, I said flatly. He violates my privacy, causes me emotional trauma, documented emotional trauma, Detective Chen, I have text messages from my therapist confirming my deteriorated mental state, and he just wins. Because he hired a better lawyer. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the criminal route may not be viable at this moment, but you absolutely have civil remedies available to you. You can sue him for invasion of privacy, emotional distress, whatever your attorney recommends. Civil remedies. Which meant more money, more lawyers, more court dates, more public record for him to exploit or refute or weaponize. Thank you for the update, I said, and hung up before she could hear how close I was to losing it. Mark found me sitting in the dark bathroom, fully clothed, staring at nothing. Hey, he said softly, sitting down on the tile floor next to me. Hey, look at me. I did. His eyes were tired in a way I'd never seen before. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm sorry I called the police. I'm sorry I tried to do the right thing and it just made everything worse. This is not your fault, Mark said firmly. You did not cause Trevor to go through your purse. You did not cause him to post that to social media. You did not cause him to hire a lawyer and play the victim. He did those things. He chose to do those things. And now we're the ones paying for it. Yes, Mark agreed, and his honesty was somehow more comforting than any platitude could have been. Right now, we are. But that doesn't mean we're wrong. It just means he's more prepared for this kind of fight than we are. I leaned my head against his shoulder. So what do? We get a good lawyer. We protect ourselves legally. And we stop trying to make him understand what he did was wrong, because people like Trevor don't work that way. We just focus on protecting us and our family from here on out. Our family. It was just the 2 of us now. The baby we'd only carried for 31 days was gone. And I was sitting on a bathroom floor in the dark, realizing that the person I needed to protect myself from was never going to face any real consequences for what he'd done. The worst part was knowing that he knew it too. #Chunk5. The consultation with the civil attorney was scheduled for Thursday morning at 9 a.m., which meant I had to take time off work. My boss, Patricia, had been sympathetic when I asked for the day, but I could see the calculation happening behind her eyes, the mental math of how much disruption I'd caused in the past 2 weeks, how many times I'd had to step away from my desk, how this pregnancy, which she wasn't supposed to know about but apparently half the city did, might affect my availability in the coming months. Of course, she'd said with a tight smile. Take care of what you need to. Just let me know if you need anything else. What she meant was, don't take too much time. The lawyer's office was in a building that made me feel poor just walking through the lobby. Everything was glass and marble and intimidating in a way that expensive things always are. Mark held my hand in the elevator, which was probably stupid of him since we were alone, but I appreciated it anyway. David Chen, no relation to Detective Chen, which felt like a cosmic joke, was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and the kind of tailored suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had a yellow legal pad in front of him and a pen poised like he was ready to absorb every detail of my suffering and transmute it into billable hours. So, he said, after the initial pleasantries, I've reviewed the police report and the criminal case summary Detective Chen provided. The DA dropping the case doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. It's a jurisdictional issue as much as anything else. HIPAA violations are typically handled through federal complaint mechanisms, not state criminal law. Your brother-in-law's attorney would have known this going in. Which means he was never going to face criminal charges, I said. Not a question. It was unlikely, yes. But that doesn't mean you don't have recourse. He tapped his pen against the pad. What Trevor did, accessing your private medical information without consent and publicly disclosing it, that's invasion of privacy. Unauthorized access to medical records could also be considered theft of private information. And the emotional distress you've suffered is significant enough to warrant a civil suit. For how much? Mark asked. Depends. We'd be looking at damages for emotional distress, which typically range based on severity and duration. Medical records show she had a miscarriage, therapy sessions, elevated stress levels. That's documented harm. We could also push for punitive damages if we can demonstrate he acted with malice, and given the context of this being a financial dispute, the social media post is retaliation, I'd say malice is clear. He was talking about money like it was abstract. Like this was about numbers on a spreadsheet instead of my body, my loss, my trauma. What's realistic? I asked. What would actually happen? Realistically? He settles before trial. His insurance company gets involved. He should have homeowners or renters liability coverage that might apply. They bring in their own lawyers, they make an offer, you decide if it's acceptable. If it's not, we go to court. And court costs? Mark's voice had that careful tone. The tone of someone doing math in their head they don't like. My retainer is $5,000. Then I bill hourly at $350 an hour. If this settles quickly, you might be looking at $8,000 to $12,000 total out of pocket. If we go to trial, it could be significantly more. I felt Mark's hand tighten around mine. $5,000. We had it, technically. But that was the down payment on the crib we'd ordered. The bottle sterilizer we'd registered for. The baby carrier and the stroller frame and the new car seat that was supposed to be delivered next week. All the tiny investments in a future we were now supposed to carry out while fighting a lawsuit against family. Let me ask you something, I said carefully. What if I don't do this? What if I just let it go? David set down his pen. Legally? That's your right. You're not required to pursue civil action. But I'd advise against it for 2 reasons. First, letting this go sends a message to your brother-in-law that there are no consequences for his actions. Second, and more importantly for you personally, it leaves this unresolved. The trauma of what he did remains in your life, unaddressed. But if I sue him, it's in the news. It's documented. Publicly available forever. Yes, he agreed. That's the trade-off. You get justice, or at least restitution, but you lose privacy on the matter entirely. The civil case would be public record. After we left, Mark and I sat in the car in the parking garage for 20 minutes without speaking. The air felt thick. Outside, the city continued on without us, indifferent to our impossible choices. We could ask my parents for help with the legal fees, Mark finally said. No. The word came out harder than I intended. No, your mother is already walking on eggshells trying to figure out which side of this to be on, and your father basically told us not to pursue it. I'm not giving them ammunition. So we just absorb the cost. I don't know. I felt tears threatening and pushed them down with sheer force of will. I was tired of crying. I was tired of being the victim in this story. I was tired of every single decision being a choice between bad and worse. I need time to think about it. That night, I made the mistake of checking my work email from home. There was a message from Patricia, marked as urgent. Asterisk quick question, are you planning to return to full-time work after your leave, or should we start planning for a replacement? Just need to know for budgeting purposes. No pressure, just advance notice would help asterisk. Except there was pressure. There was so much pressure I could feel it crushing my ribs. She didn't even know when my maternity leave would be, I hadn't told her that yet, but she was already planning for my absence. Planning for a future where I couldn't be counted on. I replied, asterisk I'll let you know soon. Still sorting some personal matters asterisk. Which was a lie. I wasn't sorting anything. Everything was a tornado. The baby I'd lost, the brother-in-law I might sue, the career I might be losing, the marriage that was holding up only because Mark was stronger than I was. My phone buzzed with a notification. A text from an unknown number, asterisk saw you at David Chen's office today. Your lawyer can't protect you from what's coming asterisk. I stared at it for a long time without showing it to Mark. Hashtag chunk 6. The text message sat on my phone like a loaded gun. I didn't show Mark. I know that was stupid, probably the exact kind of secret keeping that therapists warn you about, but I couldn't. He was already stretched so thin, already trying to hold me together while holding himself together, and this felt like the thing that would finally snap him. Instead, I did what I always did with information that terrified me. I compartmentalized it. I put it in a mental box, locked it, and tried to focus on things I could theoretically control. Except there weren't any. The next morning, I found out that Trevor had hired a lawyer too. This came via an email from David Chen forwarded to my inbox at 7:43 a.m., marked urgent. Your brother-in-law retained counsel yesterday afternoon, David had written. Asterisk his attorney has already begun damage control. They're claiming the social media post was taken down within 2 hours due to his own initiative, and they're positioning this as a family dispute that should be resolved privately. Expect a settlement offer within 48 hours. We should discuss strategy. Asterisk. I called David from my car before work. Mark was already there, he'd gone in early for a project deadline, and I needed to be alone for this conversation. How much are they going to offer? I asked. No way to know yet. But I guess they'll start low. Maybe $15,000 to $25,000. The goal is to get you to settle quickly before this becomes a bigger problem for them. Their strategy will be, make this go away fast, keep it quiet, minimize exposure. And if we don't settle? Then we build our case. We go after him for the invasion of privacy, the emotional distress, the documented medical harm. We make it expensive for them to fight. Eventually, most cases settle anyway, but from a position of strength instead of weakness. I thought about the text message. Someone had been watching me at the lawyer's office. Someone connected to Trevor. The thought made my stomach turn. David, is it possible he's threatening me? There was a pause. What kind of threat? I told him about the text. The line went quiet for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Send me that message, he finally said. Forward it to my email right now. And don't respond to any further contact from unknown numbers. If you get another message, call me immediately before doing anything else. Is this bad? It might be. It depends on what the message actually means. But it's also potentially illegal. Witness intimidation. Harassment. If he's trying to scare you into dropping the suit, that's evidence of consciousness of guilt, and it's also a separate crime. After I hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot and shook. The morning was gray and cold, the kind of November day that makes everything feel futile. I had a meeting in 10 minutes. I had spreadsheets that needed reviewing. I had a performance review coming up that I was now absolutely certain was going to be bad. My phone buzzed again. Different number. My heart jumped until I saw it was just my insurance company confirming an appointment. I made myself go inside. By 2 p.m., I had a call from David. His attorney sent over their settlement proposal. It's $20,000. I was in the bathroom at work when he told me. I locked the stall door and sat on the toilet like a child hiding. That's it? For all of this? That's their opening offer. They're betting you'll take it because you're desperate and tired and emotionally drained, which, to be fair, you are. They're hoping you'll say yes and this disappears from your life. And if we counter? We ask for $75,000. They'll come back with $30,000. We'll probably settle somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000 range if they're actually serious. But here's what concerns me. If they're sending threatening messages via unknown numbers, they might not be interested in settling at all. They might be trying to pressure you into dropping the suit entirely. So what do? You document everything. You don't respond to threats. You keep going to work, you keep living your life, and you let me handle the legal side. But I also want you to think about whether you want to proceed with this. I know I said you should, and legally you have a strong case, but this is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to dig into your life. They're going to find every Facebook post you've ever made, every therapy note they can subpoena, every argument you've ever had with your husband. They're going to try to paint you as unstable, as someone who can't be trusted. I'm not unstable, I said quietly. I know that. But they don't care. This is war now, and the rules are different. I went back to work and somehow got through the rest of the day. I submitted my reports. I smiled at Patricia when she asked how I was doing. I acted like a functional human being even though inside, I felt like I was dissolving. That night, Mark was already home when I got there. He'd ordered Thai food and set it up on the kitchen counter like we were celebrating something. The domesticity of it almost broke me. David called me, Mark said. He wanted me to know about the settlement offer and the threatening text. He thought you might not want to tell me. I froze in the act of hanging up my jacket. And? Do you think I should take the money and drop it? I think, Mark said carefully, that I think you should do whatever you need to do to feel safe and okay again. And I think that might not be possible either way. Because if you take the money, Trevor wins. He learns that he can hurt you and still come out ahead. And if you don't take the money, he's going to make your life hell in the meantime. So it's hopeless. It's not hopeless. It's just that the outcome of a lawsuit isn't going to fix what he broke. The money won't fix it. Nothing will, probably, except time and the fact that you'll eventually have to learn to live with this. I wanted to argue with him. I wanted him to tell me there was a path forward where everything got better, where I got justice and my peace back and my baby and everything made sense again. But Mark wasn't going to lie to me. That was both the best and worst thing about him. What if I don't settle? I asked. What if we go all the way? Then we fight, Mark said. Even if it costs us everything. Even if it costs us more than the house is worth. We fight because someone needs to tell people like Trevor that they can't do this. I wanted to believe him. But sitting in our kitchen with cold Thai food getting colder, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always going to be angry at me, no matter what I chose. #Chunk7. The settlement offer sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days like a bomb with a ticking clock. $20,000. Enough to fix the roof that had been leaking since last spring. Enough to finally get Mark's dental work done. Enough to make this all go away. Mark didn't push me either direction, which somehow made it worse. He'd made his statement about fighting, about principles, about not letting Trevor win, and now he was waiting to see what I would actually do when faced with a choice. The weight of that expectation was suffocating. On day 4, David called with an update that changed everything. I've been contacted by the hospital, he said without preamble. They're being subpoenaed for your medical records. Trevor's attorney is claiming they need access to your obstetric history for discovery purposes. They're arguing it's relevant to establish the extent of emotional distress you're claiming. My mouth went dry. They can do that? Not without a fight. I'm filing a motion to quash the subpoena. Your medical records are protected under HIPAA, and there's no legitimate reason they need your miscarriage history to defend against an invasion of privacy claim. But here's the problem, even filing the motion puts it on record. Even trying to protect your privacy means potentially drawing more attention to what's in those records. What do you mean? I mean that the judge who reviews the motion might be curious about what you're so desperate to protect. And if the case goes to trial, a jury is going to wonder the same thing. Right now, your pregnancy is abstract. If this becomes public, if it's discussed in court filings and potentially in front of people, it stops being abstract. It becomes real. It becomes a story. I thought about the anonymous text message. Someone watching me. Someone connected to Trevor who knew where I was. David, what if he's trying to force me to miscarry? What if the stress is the point? The silence on the other end was too long. I don't know, he finally said. But if you're in distress because of his actions, we can document that. You should see your OB, tell them what's happening. Get it on the record that the stress of this lawsuit and the threatening messages are impacting your pregnancy. That strengthens our case. But it also meant more exposure. More people knowing. More ways for this secret, the one I'd fought so hard to keep, to leak out into the world. I called my OB's office and got an appointment for the next day. The waiting room smelled like artificial vanilla and dread. I sat there surrounded by other pregnant women, their bellies round and proud, their hands resting on their skin like they owned their futures. I wondered how many of them were keeping secrets. How many of them were terrified. Dr. Reeves brought me into the exam room and closed the door with purpose. She was a woman in her 50s who delivered 3 of my cousin's babies and who'd been the one to confirm my positive pregnancy test with an expression of careful joy. She knew my history. "How are you feeling?" she asked, but it wasn't a casual question. She was already reading my face. I told her everything. The lawsuit, the threatening text, the stress, the knowledge that someone connected to my family was actively trying to hurt me. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she sat down on her stool and rolled closer. "I'm going to do some extra monitoring," she said. "I want to check the baby's heart rate today, and I want you to come back in 2 weeks instead of 4. We're going to watch you carefully. But I also need you to understand something. Stress doesn't cause miscarriage. I know that's what you're afraid of. Most people are. But the research is clear, emotional stress alone doesn't terminate a pregnancy. A healthy pregnancy is pretty robust. But what about extreme stress? What about? Even then. There are things that could cause problems, high blood pressure, lack of sleep, poor nutrition, but those are manageable. What I'm more concerned about is you taking care of yourself while all of this is happening." She did the ultrasound. I watched the screen, waiting for bad news, but the baby was there, small and impossible, with a heartbeat that filled the room with a sound like hope. Dr. Reeves printed a photo and handed it to me. "Keep this," she said. "Remember that everything you're doing, all of this fighting, you're doing it for this." But walking out of the office with the ultrasound photo in my pocket, I felt the weight of it differently than I had before. It wasn't just mine anymore. The baby was real to everyone now, to David, to my OB, to the hospital system. The secret was fragmenting, spreading across different institutions and professionals. Each person who knew was another potential leak point. That night, I found a car parked across the street from our house. I was making coffee, looking out the kitchen window while waiting for Mark to come home from work, and I just saw it. A dark sedan, nondescript, with someone in the driver's seat. My first instinct was to grab my phone and call 911, but something stopped me. The car wasn't doing anything. The person inside wasn't approaching. They were just watching. I called David instead. "Are you sure it's the same car?" he asked. "No. I mean, I didn't write down the license plate last time. But it's the same color, same model. Call the police non-emergency line. Report it. Get a police report number. If there's surveillance happening, that's potentially witness intimidation. It's also potentially harassment." The police took 23 minutes to arrive. By then, the car was gone. The officer who showed up was younger, maybe early 30s, and he took my statement like he was reading a grocery list. "No, I didn't see the license plate. No, I couldn't identify the driver. No, I didn't see them do anything illegal. So they were just parked," he said. "Yes. Watching our house. Watching is legal, ma'am. Unless they were on your property or making threats or behaving erratically, there's not much I can do. But I can note it in the report. Do you want me to increase drive-bys at this neighborhood?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to explain that someone had already violated my medical privacy, already threatened me, already weaponized the most vulnerable moment of my life, and that standing on the street wasn't just watching, it was a message. It was a reminder that I was never truly safe. Instead, I just nodded. When Mark came home, I didn't tell him about the car. I didn't tell him that I was now terrified of my own front window. I didn't tell him that I was starting to understand why people took settlements, why they chose comfort over justice. I just told him I loved him and held on to him like he was the only solid thing left. #Chunk8. The decision came on a Tuesday morning, not with a flash of clarity but with a slow, creeping certainty that felt almost like surrender. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of my office, a place I'd been coming to for 5 years but which suddenly felt hostile and exposed. My hand was on the steering wheel, and I was staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, trying to recognize myself. I looked tired. I looked scared. I looked like someone who was losing. My phone buzzed. Another text from an unknown number. "He's going to know the truth about you soon." I blocked it. I'd blocked 17 numbers over the past week. It didn't matter. There would be more. I called David. "I want to take the settlement," I said before he could even say hello. "Okay," he said carefully. "Walk me through what changed your mind." Nothing changed. That's the problem. I keep thinking this will get better if I just hold on, if I just fight harder, but it won't. He's going to keep pushing. He's going to keep coming. And every day I fight back, I'm giving him more access to my life, my medical history, my pregnancy. I'm letting him win by making me fight. That's not how this works. Isn't it? I interrupted. "David, someone is watching my house. My medical records are being subpoenaed. My OB knows. The hospital knows. The court system knows. I'm being documented and filed and examined by people who have nothing to do with me or my baby. And for what? So I can win a lawsuit against a man who's never going to change? So I can prove that what he did was wrong? He already knows it was wrong. He did it anyway." David was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to do?" "I want my privacy back. I want to be able to walk into my office without feeling like I'm on trial. I want to sleep without being afraid of what car might be parked outside. I want to keep my baby safe. And I don't think any of that happens if I keep fighting." "The settlement doesn't come with confidentiality," he warned. "You can accept it, but legally, he doesn't have to sign an NDA. He could still talk about your pregnancy." "I know. But at least it's no longer his legal obligation to. At least I'm not feeding him reasons to keep coming at me." "And Mark?" "I'll talk to Mark. But I didn't need to. When I got home that evening, I found him sitting on the front porch, waiting for me. He'd left work early. He pulled me down to sit beside him, and without me saying anything, he just held my hand. "You want to settle," he said. It wasn't a question. "How did you?" "I've been thinking about it too," he said quietly. "About what this is costing us. Not the money. The peace. I don't want to spend the next year of your pregnancy fighting. I don't want to spend our baby's first moments on this earth still in battle with my brother. I thought you wanted to win. I did. I do. But winning isn't the same as surviving, and right now, I'm more interested in surviving. He squeezed my hand. We're going to be okay either way. But we're going to be better if we're not doing this. I cried then, not tears of defeat but tears of relief so profound they felt like they might drown me. David called Trevor's attorney the next morning. The settlement amount increased slightly with the addition of my legal fees, but the principal stayed the same, $25,000 to make it end. Trevor accepted within hours. It was done. The lawsuit was dismissed on a Friday. I didn't go to the courthouse. I stayed home and sat with the knowledge that it was over, that the machinery of justice had ground to a halt, that I was no longer anyone's victim in a legal document. What I didn't expect was my mother's phone call that evening. I owe you an apology, she said without preamble. A real one. Not that I'm sorry you're upset, kind, but that I was wrong and I've been wrong, kind. I wasn't sure how to respond. My mother had called repeatedly during the lawsuit, each call a variation of the same theme. It's family, you should be more understanding, let it go, why are you being so difficult? Your father and I went to see Trevor, she continued. We told him that what he did was unforgivable. We told him that we didn't care what his reasoning was, it doesn't matter. He violated you. And then his family reinforced it by defending him. We were part of that, and I'm ashamed. Mom. I also fired him from the family business, she said. Not forever, necessarily, but he's done here until he gets serious help about why he thought he was entitled to hurt you to get what he wanted. And I've told the rest of the family that anyone who tries to pressure you to reconcile or forgive him on some artificial timeline is going to have a problem with me. I started crying again. Your baby didn't ask to be a secret, she said quietly. And you shouldn't have had to protect your pregnancy like it was something shameful. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand that. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, I wasn't there and might never be, but a kind of settling. A sense that the world was slowly adjusting back to normal, or at least to a version of normal that I could live in. The watching stopped. No more cars parked across the street. No more threatening texts. It was as if taking away the legal battle had deflated whatever vindictive purpose it had served. I started telling people. Carefully, on my own timeline. A coworker. My best friend. My yoga instructor. Each time, the secret became less toxic, less shameful, less like something that could destroy me. By my 20-week ultrasound, when Dr. Reeves asked if I wanted to know the sex, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. I want to know everything about this baby. She smiled. It's a girl. Mark squeezed my hand so hard I thought he might break it. That night, we told my parents. The next day, we painted the nursery. It was pale yellow, safe, hopeful, impossible to feel afraid in. 3 weeks later, I got an email from a lawyer representing Trevor. He was requesting a meeting to discuss a potential apology and the possibility of supervised visits after the baby was born. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to David and deleted it from my inbox. Some people don't get to be part of your story. Some people write themselves out by choosing cruelty over kindness. And that's not your failure, that's theirs. I was learning, finally, that the best revenge wasn't winning in court. It was living well, loving fiercely, and protecting what mattered most with everything I had. My daughter would be born into a world where she mattered so much that her mother had fought to keep her safe before she ever took her first breath. That was enough. That was everything.